As we've talked about in a previous video, the free application for federal student aid is experiencing a facelift starting in the 2024 to 2025 school year. The FAFSA Simplification Act is taking place this coming year, and you need to be prepared for some of the things that are going to be changing compared to the previous FAFSA. We're going to talk today about the 3 negative things that the FAFSA is going to be affecting, specifically for families who are business owners, who have multiple children in school at the same time, and for divorced parents. In one of our prior videos, we talked about one of the definition changes that's going to be taking place. The expected family contribution, which has been the definition in which colleges have used by the Department of Education to determine how much a family can and should contribute to college per year, is now being changed to what's known as the Student Aid Index. There are some procedural changes within the Student Aid Index that you need to be aware of. And today we're covering those 3 things that are going to be negatively affecting families. The first one is the change in which multiple students in college at the same time will be measured. Previously, the expected family contribution would be split in half, or split into thirds, or split into fourths, depending on how many students would be in school at the same time. Let's use an example of a family whose expected family contribution for one child in school is $40,000. In the event that that child were going to be going to school their freshman year, that $40,000 would be the expected family contribution for that year. For that student's freshman year, the $40,000 EFC can be expected to be split in half if in his sophomore year, his sister were to then go to college. So while he's a sophomore and his sister is a freshman, that $40,000 EFC that the family had would now be split in half. So the son, who's a sophomore, has a $20,000 EFC, and the daughter, who's now a freshman, has a $20,000 EFC, equaling the $40,000 EFC that was held the previous year. Now we're changing that. The expected family contribution, again, is no longer the technical definition. The Student Aid Index is going to be based off of the child, and it won't make any difference if they have multiple children in school at the same time. So in our previous example that we just talked about, while that son who's now a sophomore is going to have a $40,000 a year student aid index, his younger sister, who's now going to be a freshman, is also going to have a $40,000 a year student aid index. Why this is important and why this really matters is that student aid index, while it's not going to necessarily be the exact amount you're going to have to pay for school, it's a starting point to tell colleges how much that family can reasonably afford based on their financial picture. So, if you have multiple students in school at the same time, while you previously would have gotten a break on the expected family contribution while filling out the FAFSA, you're no longer going to get that break while multiple kids are in school at the same time. It is a starting point, and there's no guarantee it's going to drastically change for families, but this is easily the most impactful change, the most impactful negative change for families that's taking place due to the FAFSA Simplification Act. Families who are also going to notice a significant impact from the FAFSA Simplification Act are families who come from a divorce situation. Previously, on the old FAFSA, the parent who spent 51% or more of the time with the child was the parent who was required to fill out that dependent information on the FAFSA. Being that the definition has now changed, the way that it's going to work is that the child who receives more financial support from either custodial parent is now going to be the parent who's required to be on the FAFSA. The definition can be a little gray at the moment. However, what will need to be determined is which parent is providing that financial support. So for example, who's paying the mortgage? Who's primarily paying the groceries? Who's paying for the majority of things that student's able to benefit from financially? In terms of the definition, it is broad and it is a little bit nuanced, but you want to make sure that the parent who is providing that most financial support is the one that's filling out the FAFSA moving forward. The last change, and one that's very significant for a certain subset of parents, is going to be that the small business exclusion is no longer in effect with the new FAFSA. So the way that it worked on the old FAFSA is that if you had a small business with less than 100 employees, that business was exempt from being reported as an asset on the FAFSA. Therefore, small business owners didn't have to report the value of their business, and that led to, in most cases, a lower expected family contribution. Moving forward, that value of the small business needs to be reported as an asset in that family's financial picture. So, what that means is, based on the value of that asset, it is more than likely to drive up the student aid index moving forward. A higher student aid index likely means less need-based aid available. So, for business owners, this is an unwelcome change that's taking place due to the fact that you're now adding, in some cases, a significantly sized asset to be listed on the book for the free application for federal student aid. This also will affect family farms as well, because family farms must list the value of all assets within that business. Why this is a problem and where this can create future problems is that business assets, more often than not, are not very liquid. They're not like a checking account or a savings account or a 529 plan, which are also listed as assets on the FAFSA. Therefore, it's not like you can easily just sell some of these assets to then turn into funds that can be used to pay for college. Due to this unwelcome change, business owners need to prepare for the upcoming changes in the student aid index to make sure that they've properly planned to pay for 4 years of schooling. As we've mentioned in a previous video explaining the FAFSA Simplification Act, this is going to affect every single family regardless of whether your child is an incoming freshman, whether your child's previously been in school, or whether your child has yet to enroll into college. Moving forward, this is going to be the new way. So these three changes that are taking place for families, if you've done it a certain way for a period of time, is no longer going to be the case. It's important to make sure that you're planning for these changes, and that if you're a family that is going to be affected by this, that you're planning accordingly, and that your college plans and the way that you're paying for college isn't going to be disrupted. As always, thank you for watching, and make sure that your specific situation is talked through with your financial planner, your tax accountant, and your specific advisor. This is general advice and is not meant to be taken for specific advice. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for future content, where we'll also talk about the positives of the FAFSA Simplification Act.